Hey yo, what is up YouTube? Welcome back to another chill reaction, man. Okay, tonight we got something a little bit different. The title of this is 10 Shocking Deathbed Murder Confessions. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this, so let's get straight to it, man.
What happens in people's minds when they know they're going to die? In some cases, those
I don't
deathbed
know.
confessions can turn the tables and solve unanswered cold cases. Here are 10 shocking deathbed murder confessions. Before we get to it though, remember to subscribe to All Time 10s. Got it?
Subscribe,
Let's go.
hit the like, hit the
Number
bell,
10.
all of that.
Sharon
you know.
Diane Crawford Smith. An awful,
Okay.
cold-blooded murder happened in Richmond, Virginia in 1967. The two
67.
sisters-in-law, Smoots Havana, 19, and Carolyn Havana Perry, 20, were shot to death at the High's ice cream local store, where they both worked. The killer was never found until 2009. That's when 60-year-old
Until 2009. And the murders happened in 67. God damn.
Sharon Diane Crawford Smith suffered until 2009. That's when 60-year-old Sharon Diane Crawford Smith,
60-year-old.
suffering from a terminal illness, confessed she murdered the two girls. Smith told the police that she went to the store to ask for a day off. Then, to quote Smith, one thing led to another. Smith also told the police that the two sisters kept teasing her for being a lesbian and she couldn't bear it anymore. She provided a motive and pretty accurate details that only the murderer could have known. But then what did she do with the murder weapon? She explained she gave the gun to a friend and police detective David Bocock. Unfortunately, the authorities could never find out if Bocock knew about the murder or if he was simply trying to save some trouble for his friend. Smith died soon after her last interview and Bocock had already perished in 2006. Number 9. James
Damn.
Brewer.
That was like 50 years later, right? 67, 2009. Nah, 42 years later. Jesus. And if she didn't confess, they would probably never know. Damn.
You know how karma works by now, don't you? When you do something bad, then something bad will come back and happen to you, and vice versa. Okay, well if you didn't know, now you do. Here's an example that confirms that rule. In 2009, following a stroke, 58-year-old James Brewer believed he was going to die soon. So he confessed that in 1977, he killed his neighbour, Jimmy Carroll, because he believed Carroll tried to seduce his wife. At the time, Brewer was arrested in Tennessee on suspicion of shooting the man dead. Yet he jumped bail and fled to Oklahoma, where he and his wife began a new life under assumed names and lived happily for 32 years. But when it became clear death was soon approaching, he felt the urge to clear his conscience. That's kind of a good thing, I guess, but here's the twist. Unexpectedly, Brewer recovered and had to surrender to Tennessee's authorities. So while this was indeed a deathbed confession, it wasn't quite as final as he might have thought. Number 8. Harvey Richardson. We usually think of librarians as very mild, dare I say boring people, but let's dispel the myths, they aren't, which is not necessarily a good thing.
I mean, you can never judge somebody from the job he's doing. Not even from a, for a stereotypical type of way. You can never judge somebody by that. You can never know who's done something bad or whatever. But yeah.
In 2008, Harvey Richardson, a retired librarian, aged 77, died from colon cancer at a hospice in Liverpool. Following his death, the decorators who were cleaning out his house found a bag containing Richardson's detailed, handwritten 9-page confession to the 1970 unsolved murder of 19-year-old Lorraine Jacob. Richardson was never a suspect to the police. He had no previous convictions, and there was only one report of him being drunk as a young man. Yet when detectives went through the confession, it contained information that no one could possibly have known. The letter revealed that a drunken Richardson met Miss Jacob after 11 p.m. on the night of the murder. They walked together for a while, then an argument broke out. In a fit of rage, Richardson strangled Miss Jacob. Even if, for obvious...
You know he was suffering. You know he was suffering from that murder, right? To sit down and write those pages. I'm not trying to protect his case, but you know he was suffering, of course. to sit down and write those in detail. And it's too bad, man, they found it after his death, like I heard.
Out. In a fit of rage, Richardson strangled Miss Jacob. Even if, for obvious reasons, Richardson could not get to trial, the police decided there was sufficient evidence to consider Richardson responsible for Jacob's murder. So the lesson here, folks, is beware of librarians. Number 7. Roy
Yeah,
Heath.
beware of everybody.
Who says carpets only have an ornamental function? They have many uses. They can cover damaged floor, for example, or they can be quite useful if you want to get rid of a body. In February 2010, following a tip-off, London police discovered the body of 53-year-old...
Most of those so far are between 2008, 2009, 2010. The confessions, I mean, not the murders. It's just something that I picked up.
Mohammed Taki at a flat in Fulham, West London. Taki's body had been bound with tape and wrapped in a carpet before being buried under the concrete patio. Consequently, the authorities tried to reach out to the flat owner, 52-year-old Roy Heath, who was terminally ill in Trinity Hospice in Clapham, South London. The police managed to interview him a few times to no avail. On the 4th occasion, though, he admitted he had in fact strangled Mr. Taki during an argument and then hid him under his patio for 12 years. Unfortunately, Mr. Heath died before he could give further information to the police, but at least Taki's family, all living in Syria, could finally know what happened to their expat relative and get on with their lives. Number 6. Frank Thorogood. Every time a celebrity dies, it's hard for their fans to let go and accept their departure. For inexplicable reasons, we find the idea of them being assassinated perhaps more comforting than suicide or a fatal accident. So when ex-Rolling Stone Brian Jones... than suicide or inexplicable reasons, we find the idea of them being assassinated perhaps more comforting than suicide.
Who the fuck finds the idea of a celebrity getting murdered more comforting? What the fuck are you talking about? No, it's the same situation. It's maybe even sadder if a celebrity, you know, whatever, anyone gets murdered. It's sadder. It's not more comforting. What do you mean, bro? Okay.
Or fatal accident. So when ex-Rolling Stone Brian Jones's 1969 drowning was ruled an accident linked to drugs and alcohol binges, friends and fans believed Jones had been murdered instead. This theory was supported by the 1994 book...
Nah, it's not because they believed he was murdered, not because it was more comforting, but because you know how people are, man. When it comes to celebrities, singers, artists, and all that, when somebody dies, like many cases, like with MJ, like with Tupac, like with everybody, I mean, Tupac was murdered, but you know what I mean. Everybody starts to create, you know, different theories. But let's see.
Fans believed Jones had been murdered instead. This theory was supported by the 1994 book Brian Jones, Who Killed Christopher Robin by Terry Rawlings. That book claimed that on his deathbed, construction worker Frank Thorogood confessed to his friend and Rolling Stones driver Tom Keelock that he was the one who murdered Jones. This highly scrutinised claim and other new evidence prompted Sussex police to review the case in 2009, but ultimately they kept it closed. However, in 2019, Netflix released a documentary, No Expectation, The Murder of Brian Jones, that seems to support the murder claim, reopening the case 50 years later.
Damn. I've never heard of that before. I might have to watch that on Netflix. Wow. Jesus, okay, let's continue, man.
Number 5. Geraldine Kelly. Geraldine and John Kelly's marriage had been cold for years. Actually, it was more than just a cold marriage. Geraldine had suffered abuse from her partner for years, but felt she couldn't leave the father of her 2 children. Then, in 1991, it all became too unbearable for Geraldine, and she turned him into a literally cold husband. She shot him and hid his body in a freezer for 6 years. How did she manage to keep that a secret for so long? She told her children their father died in a car crash, and they believed her. No body, no ashes, no funeral, and yet they believed her. I guess kids really do believe everything their parents tell them. 6 years later, when she began losing her battle
If they
with
were
breast
young, I
cancer,
guess.
she confessed her crime to her daughter. When Geraldine passed away, her daughter called
Wow, I'm sorry for your daughter, man. Imagine that, man. Imagine knowing for 6 years, he said, believing that your father just died, and then your mother coming to you and confessing that she murdered him. Wow, condolences to the kids, man, to the kids. Fuck that, fuck their mother. But condolences to the kids, man. Wow, that must have been extremely traumatizing. I can't even imagine. Wow.
police, who checked the freezer and found the man's remains. Despite years of extreme decomposition, thanks to his tattoos, the authorities could identify the body as John's. So thanks to that discovery in the freezer, the family's trauma finally found an end.
Nah, the trauma didn't find an end, the psychological trauma. But yeah, I get what it's saying.
Number 4. Henry Alexander. Unfortunately, American history, well, history in general I guess, has been marked by countless hate crimes. Some have not been recorded by history, and many have been unjustly dismissed as accidents or suicides. That's the case for 26-year-old African-American Willie Edwards, who in 1957 died from a fall from a bridge along the Alabama River. Officials found his body only 3 months later, at which point, according to them, the decomposition of the body made it impossible to determine the cause of his death. Cut to 1976, when 4 members of the KKK were arrested. However, Alabama...
I can't believe the KKK exists, man. Come on.
Judge Frank Embry dismissed all the charges because no cause of death could ever be established. In 1992, an unexpected confession gave a glimmer of hope to the Edwards family. Just before dying from cancer, Henry Alexander admitted to his wife that he and 3 other members of the Ku Klux Klan forced Willie to jump off the bridge.
I hope he died a painful
The investigation was
death,
reopened, and in 1999, the district attorney presented a new case before a Montgomery County grand jury. This subsequently affirmed that Edwards' death was indeed caused by the Ku Klux Klan, but declined to indict anyone specifically for the crime. Number 3.
Jesus. Okay, I will not speak about what I'm thinking right now because it might be kind of controversial, but I hope the guy with the cancer from the Ku Klux Klan died a really painful death. Jesus, man.
3. Christian Bonkowski. Would you ever confess to being a member of a group of killers that terrorized an entire country for years? Well, in 2017, Belgian Christian Bonkowski did just that. Just before he died, he confessed to his brother to being the Giant, one of the 3 men of the gang dubbed the Brabant Killers. They were responsible for a series of 28 murders in the Belgian province of Brabant between 1982 and 1985. Bonkowski's brother reported that Christian was a former member of an elite police commando unit, the Diana Group. In 1981, following the accidental discharge of his gun, he remained out of work, at which point he became bitter about this abrupt end to his career and began drinking heavily. In that very same year, the gang began their robbery attacks. However, Bonkowski had already been scrutinized as a potential suspect in 2000. A saliva sample and fingerprints had been taken from him, but those comparisons with those contained in the Brabant gang police file came back as negative. A further DNA analysis was also performed in 2017, following the claim of Bonkowski's brother, but again, that produced no results. Number 2. Sean. Until what point is a doctor legally bonded to professional confidentiality? During the 1960s, a New Zealand man who's only been identified as Sean had fallen into the wrong crowd, taking on work as a contract killer. He confessed his crimes to a member of his palliative care team in the Auckland City Hospital only in 2018, just days before he died of cancer. He claimed he didn't know his victims' names and made the doctors promise to keep the secret. They agreed, but urged him to write a confession letter to give to the authorities after his passing. However, Sean died before leaving a letter for the doctors, leaving them in a very tricky moral position. They sought legal advice on how to use the information and even published a paper on the moral and legal implications of their choice. Doctors agreed to not share the man's secret as long as he was alive because they didn't deem him a threat to others. However, after the man had passed away, they shared Sean's story with the police but kept the patient's identity a secret to the press. Number 1. Michael Lee Wilson.
Okay, I guess.
A man sentenced to death who exonerates 2 other convicts just before his death. It seems quite unbelievable, yet it's exactly what happened in 2014. 2 days before his execution, Michael Lee Wilson confessed he was responsible for the 1994 murder of Karen Summers. Wilson claimed that 2 men, Malcolm Scott and DeMarco...
Okay, let's continue. I want to say something at the end of this.
murder of Karen Summers. Wilson claimed that 2 men, Malcolm Scott and DeMarco Carpenter, who'd already served more than 20 years in prison for the crime, were completely innocent. According to Wilson, on the night of the murder, the police found him with what turned out to be the murder weapon and a car now acknowledged as being the killer's car. He agreed to testify against Carpenter and Scott in exchange for pleading a reduced charge for accessory to murder. Other witnesses came forward in the years following, claiming Wilson was the actual triggerman, yet Scott and Carpenter kept serving the time for a crime they didn't commit. But thanks to Wilson's admission of guilt, the 2 men were finally freed in 2016. So those were 10 shocking deathbed...
Okay, man, what I wanted to say is... I'm gonna cut myself off just to listen to the last part of the video. Most of these cases seem to me like when the confessions were made, the murders happened like at least 15 to 20 years ago. And these people were still free, you know. And that makes you think, you know, that makes you think. How many people are out there right now that have committed horrible crimes but are still just living their lives. Damn. Really cool video, man, by what's the channel called? Really cool videos by Old Time Tens, man. Subscribe to them. Subscribe to me if you want to support your boy, you know, as always. Videos like this make you think. At least to me. And yeah, the world is fucked up. Humanity is fucked up. Goddamn. But yeah, man, until the next one, make sure to stay chillin', to stay calm, stay blessed, support your boy if you want. And yeah, peace.